Catholic Connection is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
And it's a Tuesday. It is October 11, 2022. Good to be with you on a Tuesday morning. Thanks for listening to EWTN. Very excited about our program today. The one, the only Raymond Arroyo from the world over and from so many other different outlets and as many books and other great work. He's joining us. He has a new book that's coming out just in time for Christmas, another beautiful children's book. But somehow these beautiful Christmas children's books, I think, also at the same time enhance our own faith, and we're sharing them with our daughters and sons and our grandnieces and nephews and our grandchildren and with other children as well. They're beautifully illustrated from a wonderful publisher, if I do say so myself. They've produced 2 of my books so far. I've got another one coming out with them next year. Sophia, which means wisdom. SophiaInstitute.com is the production or the publishing company that did this terrific book. And Raymond will be joining us at 15 minutes past the hour. Another friend of mine that I admire very much and who works so hard for the faith, John Hale, the president of Corporate Travel, will be joining me. This is a great opportunity, friends, and I just cannot believe how quickly this is selling. Father Michael Schmitz is going to be joining me and Deacon Dom, Ave Maria Radio, and about, I think at least close to 100 people have already signed up. We have a special weekend available in beautiful northern Lower Michigan on Mackinac Island in the Straits of Mackinac, right below in the shadow of the mighty Mac, the Mackinac Bridge. If you've never been to northern Michigan, you don't know what you're missing, especially in the summertime. The fall, too, is incredible, but summertime is just a peak time, especially on Mackinac Island, and the Grand Hotel is in a class of its own. And John will give us the details. This is something we've been doing in terms of our Grand Hotel getaway for families, I think for about 5 years now. And it has become such an annual family event. There are many, many Catholic families that reunite at this particular event every single year, and they bring their adorable kids. And I think what is so much fun, in addition to the great talks and obviously celebrating Mass together, is to see the bonding that forms with the families, especially the young people. And this has been, as I said, 5 or 6 years now that we've been doing this. And so many of the young people that were with us were practically babies, and now they're a little bit older, and they're taking the other younger kids under their wing, and they literally take over the dance floor in the Grand Hotel at night. But to see these kids out there dancing together and getting their parents and everybody else at the Grand Hotel on the dance floor, it's just something to behold. And we get so many comments on these children because they're so well behaved, they're so nicely dressed, and it's just a great family event. And you're going to hear a very interesting story in my newscast, and I love sharing stories like this when research and quote-unquote science obviously backs up natural law, if we're looking at the real science, not the fake science or the fake news. But yet another study, a secular study, and I believe this one is from the American Heart Association, talking about the importance of families being together, especially around the dinner table. So what we have here is exactly what this study says, and we're doing this at the Grand Hotel event because we come together each night for a beautiful meal with the families at the Grand Hotel. It's quite an experience, and it makes quite a statement in a very secular surrounding. So something to think about. John Hill will be joining us, and if we have time, I do want to wrap up with just some thoughts on the ecumenism that is occurring in the state of Michigan, seeing so many amazing witnesses to Christ come together to stand up against Prop 3. Later in the week, we're actually going to have 2 wonderful people from Grace Lutheran Church in Western Michigan who put together a powerful video entitled, I Didn't Know. You can actually search it on YouTube. But what they did is they looked at the proposal and the impact, and they went through the scenarios that are very likely to occur, most definitely will occur, because this is exactly what the law is allowing. A 14-year-old telling her mother that she has had an abortion, and the mother saying, whoa, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? Why didn't you talk to me about it? Well, my teacher said I didn't have to because Prop 3, every individual had a right or has a right to an abortion. And then you have a woman talking about how she was pressured at her Catholic hospital to perform an abortion because of the law, and the Catholic hospital is under great duress because of these laws that are in place. And then you also have a scene where a mom is talking about her child, 10-year-old boy who's taking puberty blockers because he believes he needs to transition. These are all things that the law says will be allowable and must happen and not be impacted in any negative way. So any law that would affect this idea of do whatever you want with your body below the belt at any time, at any age, those laws that are in place to protect people, especially young children, gone. The amendment actually says that any laws, I'm paraphrasing here, but it says any laws that are going to affect this law are done. Basta, bye-bye, ciao, don't let the door hit you on the way out. So this is reality. And the point of the video is you can't say you didn't know because you do know. And as Father John Mercado said in this show on Friday, this is not something that is only for Michigan. That is why hundreds of millions of dollars are being poured into our state by outside pro-abortion groups, because if they can win in Michigan, this is a major victory for them. Because Michigan has been looked to for many, many years as being a strong pro-life state. I actually, we're doing some ads on Ave Maria Radio, and I put one together about women's quote-unquote health. And so you would think that most women who are concerned about women's health and decisions would expect that there would always be the opportunity to be able to go after a medical professional. It doesn't even have to be a doctor now under this law. It could be a nurse practitioner. It could be, quote-unquote, any health professional can perform an abortion. So let's say it's a botched abortion and the woman is maimed in some way, shape, or form. Or perhaps, God forbid, which does happen quite often, even though the media don't report it, let's say, God forbid, a woman dies in the procedure. Guess what? You can't go after the abortionist. And that's women's health. How is that a good thing? Well, those questions aren't raised in the secular media. They refuse to ask those questions. Just as you heard from Eric Scheidler yesterday from Pro-Life Action League, trying to get the attention and get a conversation with this representative from Missouri, bless her heart, who's telling the true story, and we pray for her, about how she was forced to have an abortion. And she changed her mind when she was at the abortion facility, and they forced her to go through with it. Now, you would think, as a reporter, the common sense question was, well, okay, I'm sure you don't want this to happen again, so what are you doing in terms of creating or pushing for laws on the books to prevent coercion when a woman is going into an abortion facility? Because in the state of Michigan, for example, we have right now a law on the books where they have to ask if a woman was pressured. But if Prop 3 passes, gone. So, a lot to consider here, and this is what I'd like to chat with you about for a few minutes if we have time after John Hale. We're going to play the audio from the video, or I don't know which one I'll play. Maybe I'll play that, or maybe I'll play part of the sermon from a major evangelical church located here in southeastern Michigan, Northridge, and the courage of the pastor, Brad Powell, to speak truth in love about Prop 3 to his congregation. And it's getting a lot of reaction. Most of it good, but as you can imagine, some of it not so much. But we need to be courageous. We need to be loving. We need to remind people of the truth, who they are, made in the image and likeness of God, and how particular people in power are trying to break that down, especially when it comes to the family. Alrighty then, 8 minutes past the hour. It is a busy, busy morning. Nothing much going on in the weather. We could get some rain in the middle part of the country, some storms, but we'll keep you posted if anything else develops. Right now, let's get to the news. It's 8 minutes past the hour. It's a Tuesday morning, the feast of John the 23rd, originally from Bergamo, Italy. One of his famous sayings, Lord, I'm tired. It's your church. I'm going to bed. Let's get to the news. Well, more than 1 million people marching in 30 states, Catholic News Agency reports, for women, life, and peace in Mexico. This past weekend, the organizers of the nationwide marches telling CNA's Spanish language sister news agency an estimated 200,000 people marching in Mexico City alone to the Angel of Independence. That's a monument to national independence in the middle of a large roundabout of a major thoroughfare in the downtown area. The marchers holding a joyful and peaceful march. It took place in cities not only in Mexico City, but in 30 states in Mexico in favor of the causes of women, the protection of human life, and for peace in Mexico as well. A Pittsburgh area school district reversing course after receiving backlash for suspending a high school biology and anatomy teacher who reportedly refused to comply with the school's preferred pronoun policy. Pennsylvania teacher Darren Cursuto of the Southside Area School District suspended, according to various outlets, last week after he reportedly told officials he would not follow a new district mandate requiring teachers address students by their preferred pronouns because it violated his religious beliefs. And more than 400 people gathering at last week's school board meeting in the small rural county, with most speakers expressing support for the very popular teacher. That's according to reports on a local news station. Students also leading protests outside the school after the teacher was suspended. At the meeting, the school board not only reinstated the teacher, but also suspended the policy with plans to rewrite it. And former Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard announcing she's leaving the Democratic Party. She made the revelation in a video posted on social media outlining the details of her farewell.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans.
The video coming less than a month before the November midterms that will determine control of the House of Representatives for the next 2 years and possibly also the fate of the Biden administration agenda. The Florida death toll from Hurricane Ian now standing at more than 100. State officials announcing yesterday the Medical Examiners Commission has confirmed 102 deaths, the majority of those deaths occurring in Lee County. And recovery appears to be well underway, meanwhile, after Ian, but Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis says much remains to be done, and it will take a while. He says 42,000 linemen have helped restore power to much of the area, and in places such as Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach, where the infrastructure was all but destroyed, he says crews are getting ready now to restore power there.
Well, now that we're going in this more rebuild and recover mode, you're going to see them working on that. And I think it's really just a matter of safety. I think that there's going to be some things that need to be done on Fort Myers Beach. A lot of it's just getting the debris out of there, and they're working really hard on that.
In addition, DeSantis saying $2.5 million has been awarded to 55 businesses under the state's Small Business Emergency Bridge loan programs. Meanwhile, Rick Hochschild tells us hundreds of thousands of low-income Florida residents stand to benefit from a federal food assistance program as they deal with the aftermath of the hurricane.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture has approved Florida's request for help from the Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. D-SNAP is for residents who are not receiving regular SNAP benefits. The Florida Department of Children and Families estimates over 740,000 households may be eligible for the program. It's being rolled out in phases, and people can start applying by visiting the DCF website.
Hal Harrell, who's the embattled head of the Uvalde School District, is officially retiring from that position. Family members of victims and survivors of the Robb Elementary School massacre had a chance to speak before the school board went into a closed meeting yesterday.
You failed to protect Irma, Eva, and those 19 babies. Your poor judgment and leadership cost people their lives.
Harrell announcing his decision on his wife's Facebook page, and school officials signed off on it as Monday's school board meeting. He said his heart was broken over the school shooting, but it was time for him to move on. Matt Bassini tells us the man behind the kidnapping and murder of a Northern California family is appearing in court.
Jesus Salgado made his first court appearance today by video, but has not yet entered a plea. Authorities in Merced County say the family of four were found dead last Wednesday. Salgado is a former employee who used to drive for the victim's trucking company. His brother, Alberto Salgado, is expected to be arraigned for criminal conspiracy, accessory, and destroying evidence. Proceedings will continue Tuesday.
The majority of almost 12,000 unionized railroad employees voting to reject a labor agreement backed by Joe Biden. That means there will be a status quo situation during which strikes cannot happen while the union continues negotiating with freight railroads. Embattled Democratic Los Angeles City Council member Nuri Martinez stepping down from her role as council president after she was caught on video making racist remarks about council member Mike Bonin's adopted black son. Fellow council member Marquise Harris Dawson thinks Martinez and others should resign.
There's someone sitting there that called the black child a monkey. It's not tenable. It's inconsistent with the city of Los Angeles. It's not who we want to be. I don't even think it's who she wants us to be.
2 other council members also on the leaked tape, as is a top leader. All 4 are Hispanic and can be heard making degrading comments about African-American politicians. And finally, in our news segment, we mentioned this earlier at the top of the hour, a very interesting new survey, as Mark Mayfield tells us, suggesting the path to having less stress in the home might run through the family, and more specifically, the family dinner table.
Researchers with the American Heart Association found that 91% of parents surveyed said their families are less stressed when they sit down together for meals. Medical professionals back up that notion. Dr. Erin Mikos is a co-author of the American Heart Association's statement on psychological health, well-being, and the mind-heart-body connection. She said sharing meals with others is a great way to reduce stress, boost self-esteem, and improve social connection, particularly for kids.
We needed a survey to tell us that. Just saying. Anyway, someone who does so much for families coming together, especially around a good book, our dear friend Raymond Arroyo from EWTN, The World Over, and so much more. Sophia Institute producing this book, publishing it. We'll find out when it's available and how you can put it under the Christmas tree for a loved one. The title of the book, I love it, The Wise Men Who Found Christmas. We'll be right back.
People ask how they can care for older family members who can't fully care for themselves. One answer is Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care. Visiting Angels assists adults nationwide with 600 locations to continue living at home and not have to move into a nursing home. Their caregivers provide assistance in hygiene, meals, and light housework. Services are provided up to 24 hours per day, and you can select your caregiver before service begins. More information, including franchise opportunities, is on the web at visitingangels.com.
Abortion,
Pornography,
embryonic stem cell research,
corporate contributions to Planned Parenthood. Do you invest in companies that are engaged in these practices? The Ave Maria Mutual Funds do not, and their investment portfolios reflect that. Ave Maria Mutual Funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria Mutual Funds. You can learn more about the Ave Maria Mutual Funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I want you to have such confidence in the Lord that you'll find such hope and see the beauty of the Lord, the majesty of God. What did our Lord say, huh? If your sins are as scarlet, oh, what? What's going to happen? They shall be made white as snow.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
This program is brought to you in part by Charity Mobile, a proud partner of Ave Maria Radio for over 15 years. Charity Mobile is the pro-life cell phone company and has sent nearly $2 million to thousands of pro-life charities. 4G LTE coverage is available nationwide, and 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite pro-life charity. A video introduction is available at CharityMobile.com. Charity Mobile, everyday living, effortless giving. CharityMobile.com.
We need to keep our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, and author Raymond Arroyo, an international speaker, and of course, a longtime host of EWTN's The World Over, the news director at EWTN, does such a fantastic job of giving us so many great stories. Has another story, this one in print for us, and just in time to put it on your Christmas list. I'm very honored because Raymond is actually giving the book out there today in terms of letting people know about it. The beautiful title is The Wise Men Who Found Christmas, and it's by, as I mentioned, Raymond Arroyo, and published by our friends at Sophia. So I'm looking at the cover of this book, absolutely breathtaking. And so first of all, thanks for doing this. We need to look at the positive and to look at the truth of the beauty of who we are. And I think even though we were both talking during the break, we can't stand the way they push Christmas so early. But for goodness sake, we need something to look at that'll make us smile.
And unfortunately, Teresa, publishing windows being what they are, you have to release in October or you miss Christmas. So, but today is release date for the book. And it's a story I stumbled across. I like, I'll bet many of your listeners, thought the wise men, well, we believe that song, the We Three Kings of Orient are, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody believes that. Turns out that song is almost entirely wrong. There were probably more than three, Teresa. And again, done a deep dive into biblical history, archaeologists. I've spoken to astronomers, interviewed a host of them. So I spent almost a year doing the background on this book. I mean, it's a picture book, but it ended up a picture book. It was going to be something else. But they were not three. They were definitely not kings. And when people hear Orient, they think the Far East. They were not from the Far East either, or even Persia. So when I dove in and found out where they were from and understood the historical reality, I thought suddenly, wow, the stakes are now really high. You have to make this into an adventure. This is like a buddy movie about these, guys who go out looking for the truth, defying the political reality of the time, defying all the people around them and the circumstances to go and search out this Messiah, this Christ child. And so I said, I've got to turn this into a family read so families can kind of enjoy this, and it can broaden their understanding of who these wise men truly were at Christmas.
And the beautiful illustrations. Tell me about the illustrator.
Oh, my gosh. Diane Le Feyer is an incredible Parisian illustrator who I hope I work with until I'm gone. She totally got the vision, the historical accuracy. In the first spread, Therese, I'll give your listeners a little Easter egg. In the first spread of the book, you'll notice it's set in Petra, okay? These wise men...
Petra, I love Petra. It's so neat.
Well,
great
you've been
place.
there. And
yes.
But that is where they came from. That was probably, in modern-day Petra, it was then the kingdom of Nabateh, the headquarters of Arabia, if you will, because that's where all the trade routes came, as you know, having been there. The wise men were very likely there. They were consults to the king, Aratus. And so in the opening of the book, you see them on a rooftop in Petra. And if you notice closely, the three main wise men are in the foreground. There are 9 other guys in the background, because as I read this, as you read Armenian and Syrian manuscripts, the Coptic Church believed that there were 60 wise men. There are Armenian and Syrian manuscripts which suggest 12. And I kind of like the idea of 12, the 12 tribes of Israel. There's a whole another reason I like the 12. But so we wink in the illustrations at other historical depths that you just can't get into in a picture book. But I could suggest them visually. And boy, did she do a beautiful job. It pops to life. I think it's engaging for kids and adults. So I did intend this as a family read and a way to make not only the wise men, these figures, the most beloved Christmas figures, by the way, after Santa Claus internationally, which I just discovered. We think we know a lot about them. They're everywhere this time of year. They're in pageants. They're under our trees. They're everywhere. Yet we know so little about them. And when you learn a little more and understand the historic reality, I think it makes not only their journey more precious and important, but it ties into our personal journey to Christ each Christmas and hopefully every day of the year.
I love the looks on the faces of the wise men on the cover of the book.
Oh, no, they're adorable. She has created such a beautiful, there's emotion in those in her illustrations. And I mean, like I said, they almost look like they're coming to life. They're so beautiful. And I respected the tradition, which, by the way, is just a tradition. From the 8th century, Venerable Bede, the British scholar, he was the one who came up with those names, Caspar and Balthasar and Melchior. Those 3 names, the ages of the wise men, those were kind of 7th century creations. If you read older manuscripts, they have very different names, and there are many more of them. But I thought these are kind of the traditional names people know. I'll use those figures, if you will, because we don't know. The truth is we don't know who they were exactly. But now we know at least where they came from and who they may have been a part of and why they went on this pursuit. It was just fascinating. The gifts, Teresa. I always bought the old line that this gold was for royalty and this was for his death, and the myrrh, the frankincense, and the gold. It turns out that too is an indication of where they came from. If I were coming to visit you, I would probably bring you, a king cake, a jazz CD, and some coffee and chicory from New Orleans.
New Orleans, right?
Right. Well, it turns out frankincense, gold, and myrrh were the commodities of the kingdom of Nabateh. The kingdom of Nabateh controlled the so-called Solomon mines, so he would have had control of the gold mines. Frankincense and myrrh was only made there in Arabia, and the trade route, the main trade route, was right there. So when these wise men go, they're part of a royal delegation. They're being sent by their king with tribute to Herod because they assumed Herod had a new child. So that's kind of the wider backdrop of the book, and I just think it enriches and deepens the whole journey.
Yeah.
And I've taken a few literary choices along the way and liberties just to move the story along and to help children enter the majesty.
Can you stay another segment?
Story.
I had some other questions. Okay, we're talking with Raymond Arroyo, and it really needs no introduction, but his latest book, and I think it's not just for children, but for all of us, because you see a book like this illustrated so well with so much research and history. We all learn more about our faith. The Wise Men Who Found Christmas, from our friend Raymond Arroyo, published by Sophia. We'll put a link to where you can purchase a book. Of course, it'll be on the EWTN Religious Catalog and the Ave Maria Radio bookstore, but also in other locations. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Ray Garandy here. It's tough raising faithful Catholic kids today. Values your kids are getting from school, friends, and the media are often very different from those they get from you. What's a Catholic parent to do? How can you encourage your children to stay true to their faith? Find out in a new free webinar hosted by Dr. Greg and Lisa Popchek. The webinar is called Raising Confident Catholic Kids, and it's happening on Wednesday, October 12th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Dr. Greg and Lisa will share tried and true tips about how to become a more connected Catholic family so that your children will hold on to the precious faith they've received. If you're a Catholic parent, this is not a webinar you want to miss. Sign up today at CatholicHome.com/webinar. Remember, it's free to attend. Again, go to CatholicHome.com/webinar to sign up today.
Father Benedict Groeschel.
I don't think people should have negative fears of God, but I think you should get a lump in your throat. You should feel excited. Suppose I was going to take you and introduce you to the Pope or to the President of some country or something. You might get a lump in your throat. Forget it. Every day, you, I, live and move and have our being in the presence of God. These are the class of feelings we should have, and we should have them to an intense degree if we really had the sight of Almighty God. These feelings are the feelings which we shall have if we realize His presence, and in proportion as we believe that He is present, we shall have them. And not to have them is not to realize, not to believe that God is present to us.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
This is sure to sell out quickly, so make sure you get a copy for Christmas because it's available now from our friends at Sophia Institute Press. Raymond Arroyo's latest book, and this is a beautiful book, especially for Christmas and for families, The Wise Men Who Found Christmas, again, published by Sophia. So, Raymond, we were talking during the break, fascinating details and information. Now, what about the names? Let's go back to the names.
Well, the names, according to all the research I dug into, and it's quite extraordinary. The names simply mean king, the established names of the wise men, Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar. They mean king in various tongues. Melchior is Hebrew, Balthazar I can't remember, and Caspar is German, like Kaiser, Kaspar. So it's an interesting it's interesting how the things we've taken for granted, there are interesting and fascinating historical roots, but they reveal a lot about the time period. I mean, the gifts, Teresa, we started talking about this earlier. The gifts may indicate, and I came across a biblical scholar, Margaret Barker is her name. Margaret, and I interviewed her for a Fox Nation special I'm doing on all this, where you can really dig deep. She believes that 700 years before Jesus, the first temple priesthood, members of the priesthood in Jerusalem, the royal priesthood, were expelled by King Josiah. This is in the Old Testament. They went into hiding and exile in Arabia. These wise men, these Magi so-called, could very well have been descendants of that first temple priesthood. So they would have not only been familiar with the Jewish prophecies of a Messiah, astrology was not outside their realm. They would have picked it up in Petra from the Babylonians, from the Persians. And by the way, on the rooftop of the first temple, there were lunar cycles and astrological symbols. So it was not something foreign to them. But when they pursue the Messiah, they bring him gold because that was what was in the vestments of those royal priests in the first temple. The frankincense was burned in the first temple. And most importantly, myrrh was used for what? It was kept in the Holy of Holies, only in the first temple, to anoint members of the royal priesthood. So when they go to see this child, it is to welcome him into the royal priesthood and restore the first temple and first early Jerusalem practice of faith. It's a fascinating kind of, and again, it's a theory on her part, but as pieces fall into place, the Jordan Codex, we learn more from archaeology, all of this seems to make sense. These Magi certainly may have had a religious draw, a reason to go after the Christ child.
Talking with Raymond Arroyo, his latest book just out today, The Wise Men Who Found Christmas, from our friends at Sophia Press. So I would imagine every time you research something like this, because I know this helps me grow in my faith, the more I research the background of something or someone in connection with Christianity, in connection with our Lord and our faith, you learn so much more. And I love what you say in the press release here at the bottom, a reminder that chasing truth is often the greatest adventure of all. I love that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a play off of Pope Benedict's line.
Sure.
That, and it animates my work, and I'll bet yours too. You have to pursue truth no matter where it leads.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's hard to pursue truth. Look, I've got the scars to prove it. But I feel the same way about these wise men. I think they felt deeply that they were being called. The star was just a symbol. That star comes out, people think it just led them. No, it goes out. When they get to Herod, the star is gone. They're lost. They're in the darkness. They're confused. And they still proceed on. They press on with whatever light they're given. And that I hope it's not only the wise men who found Christmas that we remember, but I hope all of my readers refind Christmas this year. I hope they dig deeper and are unafraid to go forward. You mentioned my illustrator, Diane Le Feyer, earlier. Diane does a beautiful illustration in the middle, and again, this is a literary choice on our part. When they come to the house, and I don't want to ruin it for people, but when they come to the house, the light is not coming down from the star, but up to the star from the house. There's a great line, Pope Benedict, in one of his books on the Nativity, I think. He says, it wasn't the star that directed the child, but the child who directed the star.
Oh.
And I just love that imagery, and I said, we want to use that. I want to use that somehow. And so those are things you can slip in visually. And I love storytelling this way because children are going to get a very different story than adults will because adults are so text-bound. But I think children are going to be captivated by the illustrations here, and we took a lot of time on the reveals and the timing and how things play out. There's little surprises for kids and families. And I'm going on a book tour, Teresa. I hope you'll come see me.
Are you going to be in the Midwest at all?
I am trying. I'm trying. I think we're going to be in Cleveland. We may be in Detroit. But the current schedule is up at RaymondArroyo.com.
Okay,
I'm
good.
everywhere. I'm in Florida and Tennessee and Arizona.
You're just like EWTN. You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere. Yeah, that's right.
You're bilocating. I didn't know you had that gift, but you should with the schedule you keep.
Wish.
Yeah, right?
I'd leave one at the desk to write the next book, Teresa.
There you go. Raymond.
I've got one coming in March.
Well, Dominic Deacon Dom says I'll never get the gift of bilocation because the Lord knows I'd be shopping in two places at once, so that's not going to happen.
I love it.
I love this book. Okay, I have a quick question. So I'm really looking at this cover, and I love the illustrations. They're stunning. And I don't know, this is just me. Maybe it's from the Holy Spirit, but the image of the baby, the wise man holding the baby with his eyes so bright and full of love, and the baby smiling, and the baby holding on to the finger of the wise man. Now, immediately it came to mind the picture in the womb. Remember when the doctor was operating on the baby, and the finger reaches out and grabs the doctor's hands? I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was meant like that, but that's what it reminds me of.
Well, he's an adorable baby. And,
absolutely.
Diane really captured So, and they all just come to life. I love Herod. Herod's so awful and wicked and a terrible person. And I didn't realize, it makes perfect sense that he wiped out all those poor holy innocents to try to get to the Christ child. I didn't realize Herod had killed 3 of his sons and a wife to protect his throne. He was a murderous, horrible person. So when they go to him, these wise men know who they're going to. So all of that drama we can graft into the story, so you get a fuller picture of what's going on here. And as I told you earlier, it's the first time you'll see the wise men not on those dreary, solemn camels, but on Arabian horses, which they very likely would have ridden.
Yeah.
Arabian horses were introduced about 100 years before Jesus, and they were very common, particularly in Petra. And a horse trainer, I'm doing a Fox Nation special on the wise men, which is coming out at the top of December. And I spent a day with the horse trainer. I rode in Arabian. And I said, what makes the Arabian different? Because they do ride, they ride fast. I mean, they're amazing. And he said they have one less rib than every other breed of horse. And because of that, they have greater sustenance and resilience in the heat, in the elements, and they can go longer and faster.
Wow.
So which is something I knew nothing of. So when you put all these pieces together, the known world, astrology, archaeology, biblical history, it all points us toward not only the reality of the Magi, which there are people who have poo-pooed for many, many years, even in Catholic circles and Christian circles. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's made up. That's a fable. Turns out it's not a fable, and more than that, once you see the reality of these wise men and their journey, it, to me, strengthens the reality of the one they sought, Christ.
Amen. And as you say in your press release, a reminder that chasing truth is often the greatest adventure of all. Raymond, God bless you. Safe travels as you go around and promote this wonderful book. We'll make sure people have a link to it. The Wise Men Who Found Christmas from our very own Raymond Arroyo. Check it out at his website, RaymondArroyo.com. We'll also have a link to it on Catholic Connection Archives and the EWTN Religious Catalog and the AveMariaRadio.net bookstore. We'll be right back.
Dr. Ray Guarendi.
What's looking back at you at age 22? What do you hope to say about that child at age 22? If you're content to say, well, the way kids are turning out nowadays, counting my blessings. Parole officer says one of the nicest children he has. Or would you rather say he's 1 in 100? Morals, compassion, seeks God. Are you prepared to be a 1 in 100 parent then? You can't parent like the bulk of parents anymore. You will supervise far higher. You will screen out toxic media sewage at a rate unlike all of your friends, perhaps your family. No guarantees as to what will be looking back at you at age 22. But you want to be able to say, I think he's 1 in 100. Then you be a 1 in 100 parent.
Christ is the answer, with Father John Riccardo.
In the midst of our culture today, in this age of relativism, which wants to grant Jesus some significance, but not so much, so we'll give him wise man, great leader, inspiring preacher, great teacher, prophet. You don't get that option when you claim to be God. What reasons do we have to believe that he is who he said he is? And it's important, again, to employ the use of our reason and to understand that faith is not blind. My faith, and please God, the faith of everyone here, is not blind. It rests on something. It rests on a number of things, not least of which is my own experience of God, but it also has something substantial which can be claimed through history. We're not talking about a galaxy long, long ago, far, far away when we talk about Jesus. We're talking about a precise moment in history which has been testified to by countless testimonies, and you and I have access to them.
Welcome back, Catholic Connection. Continuing our conversation about families, things to do together. Heard about Raymond's new book, a great thing to do coming up at Christmas time, and to share that with families and with your own family. And mentioning a study that came out, and I love it when we have these secular studies that just confirm, affirm, reaffirm what we're talking about in terms of people and relationships and human beings and the way we're made in the image and likeness of God, made for relationship, first with God and then with each other. American Heart Association says you want to reduce stress, spend more time with your family and around the dinner table. This is not rocket science. Thank you very much. Someone who knows that well and promotes so many events in touch with the family is our friend John Hale from Corporate Travel in southeastern Michigan. Now, this event is already, as the old cliche goes, John, selling like hotcakes. And we're talking about a beautiful weekend with Father Michael Schmitz at the Grand Hotel next summer. Good morning.
Good morning, Teresa. Yes, it's an amazing event. It's something that's kind of taken on a life of its own. We started many years ago and have been privileged to have you and Deacon Dominic join us. And, we have individuals, couples, and families, and generational families. We have grandparents, children, their children, ages toddler and baby, all the way through college and beyond, who really come together for this special event every year. And we always have amazing speakers, and this year is no exception with Father Mike Schmitz, who will be joining us from Bible in a Year and soon to be Catechism in a Year. So we're very excited for this event at Mackinac Island, actually. It's a grand hotel and historic hotel built in 1887, and we'll be up there August 6th through 8th of next summer.
So how many people can we take for this? Because I know it's a huge hotel, but then they can only give you like a certain block of rooms. So what are we talking about numbers-wise that's available, John?
Yeah, they give us a very special rate. I mean, the rate includes this beautiful full breakfast, several-course breakfast, and several-course meal where we dress every night for dinner, as you know. And it's only a certain number of very special rates that they give us. And so we have about 200 of us who travel each year, and this year, again, they've given us enough to fill 200 places. So we'll be up there with about 200 people, and we do rosary, mass, and then a talk each night, and then some free time during the day to enjoy this world-class facility, which is just newly renovated pool. Teresa, Travel and Leisure just rated it one of the top 10 hotels in the Midwest, and routinely rates it as one of the top family resorts in the country. And
wow.
So it's just a great place to come together. And, as you said, this study just affirms what we all know in our faith, and that is you have to spend time together. If you're going to know Christ, you have to read His Word. You have to spend time with Him in the sacraments. If you want to know your family, if you want to have influence in and through your family, you have to spend time with them at the dinner table. You have to have time away as a retreat. And, our feeling has been that we should be everywhere that everyone is. So we bring the faith to cruise ships. We bring the faith to these resorts, to pilgrimage sites, and to unlikely places, even resorts, where people are going anywhere, people of faith, people not of faith. But we go and transform the experience to something more, something beyond. Sure, we have the fun, we have the activity, we have the opportunity to enjoy all that those places offer. But as we know, as Christian Catholics, that there is something deeper, there is something more, much more, and that is our spiritual life and nourishing our spiritual life. And we do both on this and on every retreat and pilgrimage we organize.
Well, let me just share some of the stats from, by the way, we're talking with John Hale from Corporate Travel, and we're talking about the annual Grand Hotel Getaway coming up next summer, sponsored by Corporate Travel, Ave Maria Radio, Tees Italy. It's a great, great weekend, and featuring our keynote, and also be the priest celebrating Mass, the wonderful Father Michael Schmitz, who really needs no description or introduction. But this came out yesterday. A new American Heart Association survey says 91% of parents notice their family is less stressed when they eat together. Such meal sharing could be a simple way to help manage chronic stress that increase a person's lifetime risk of heart disease and stroke, the Heart Group says. Of the 1,000 U.S. adults nationwide surveyed last month to the American Heart Association's Healthy for Good movement, 84% of respondents said they wish they could share a meal more often with loved ones, according to their news release. Now, John, this is, to me, at the same time fascinating, but at the same time, like, duh. Right? But we are so busy and are involved in so many activities that we forget the importance of breaking bread together, which is actually, as we know as Catholics, very Eucharistic as well.
Absolutely. It's much of what the Pope has been talking about during his weekly audiences. Just last week, Bishop Barron commented on the word savor. We're so busy to get somewhere, to go, and then when we get there, what do? We're called to rest. And
to savor.
In the sense of savoring. Yeah, savoring that moment, that time together, just being in each other's company. And I think it's fantastic. As you know, I grew up in a small town here in Michigan, a rural area. And
the other Holy Land, we call it, Port Huron.
The other Holy Land. And, well, I remember many years ago people talk about farm to table. And I said, oh, well, that sounds interesting. What's farm to table? And they described it to me, and I said, oh, you mean like how I grew up with my grandparents and great-grandparents? I mean, in a small town in the 70s, we ate what you made at the farm and you put it on the table. It wasn't, and that was healthy, and the strawberries tasted good. And now in this fast processed life and in this fast world, we have a lot of food that's heavily,
processed,
produced and processed, exactly. And it's the same thing. We know these. We know what's good for us, Teresa. We know what's good for us in food. We know what's good for our soul. It's to spend time with Christ, to spend time with family, to be Christ for others, especially in our family, and to let others be Christ for us. If we come humbly to the dinner table, we just might learn something from our kids, from our parents, from our grandparents, and we have to have that spirit of humility. And, the daily rhythm of this grand getaway is, as you know, is we have time out on our own. And, kids will be in the pool with parents or with friends and kind of beating up on each other, playing basketball and really competing on the bike, or we go for morning jogs on this beautiful island. And then we come back up and everyone is dressed for dinner. And at 4:30, we're all on our knees and we're praying the rosary. And then we celebrate Mass, the Eucharist. And then we have a great nourishing talk. And then we go and have a cocktail out on the beautiful Grand Hotel porch, looking out over the Straits of Mackinac, and then this 5-course meal. And it's like enjoying all of the gifts that God has given us, but not in a disordered way, in an ordered way toward Him and thanking Him, but also nourishing our spiritual life. And, that's the beauty of life, and that's when we are healthiest. It just makes sense.
And you talked about savoring. In addition to all those things you mentioned, the island itself, because once the people leave, during the day, we do have a lot of tourists that visit Mackinac Island because it's well known, especially in the Midwest, and many people from Chicago and Indiana do travel up the west coast of Michigan and head over to Mackinac Island. It's great for a day visit. If you don't have that much time, that's fine, but you really get to savor the beauty of the island and the kind of like this really very slow tempo after the people leave. I mean, even during the day, because you don't have any cars on the island, so it's a whole different pace to begin with. But at night when the people leave and you're out on the porch, or you decide to maybe before Mass go walk into town in late afternoon, and you just get that sense of life at a different time, and you ponder. And I was talking to Al a couple weeks ago about our Tees Italy pilgrimage that's coming up in a few weeks. And he says it's like going back in time when you go to these places, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in a place like Mackinac, and to kind of revisit that time in our world when these things really mattered, when pondering and savoring mattered.
It's absolutely true. And, Mackinac Island is like no other place. I mean, first and foremost, you have a 20-minute boat ride against the
beautiful
Great Lakes. Yeah, you go across the
Mighty Mac.
The very tip of Lake Huron, and the Great Mackinac Bridge, built in the 1950s, connecting the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan, will be on your left. And then you arrive on the island, and you literally step off that boat, and everything is from the Victorian era. There are no cars, as you said. You hear the clip-clop of horses, and you literally have stepped into another time and another era. And during the day, it is very busy. It's a bustling kind of place, and you have to get around by foot, by horse, or by bike.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, by the evening, as you said, Teresa, the whole place transforms. And, you really have so many unique experiences. We went out to dinner there last year, and we went by horse to this restaurant out in the middle of the woods, and it's like a throwback to another time. And what did we do? We just shared and enjoyed each other's company. And that's what our people come to do here. And this is one of those destination places. I mean, Mackinac Island is so much lower on the Great Lakes, and you see the ships passing out from the porch of the Mackinac, of the Grand Hotel, right through the Straits of Mackinac. And yet you have this opportunity to share it and to be all together with your family. And then, having you and Deacon Dom and Father Mike Schmitz with us, it's just a really special experience.
And then we'll broadcast. We'll do a live version of Catholic Connection from the Grand Hotel, which is always a lot of fun, and we have a nice studio audience, and Father Michael Schmitz will be there for an interview, and he's getting so much attention, thanks be to God, in the secular world. The New York Times Magazine did it. I thought it was a very balanced piece on his ministry, and I think he handled himself extremely, extremely well. And that came out, I think, the last weekend in August. The New York Times Magazine did a piece on him. And then he's been doing a lot of interviews on some very secular stations, but more conservative stations, talking about his podcast and the upcoming catechism teaching that he's going to do as well. So certainly he is well known and such a humble guy from Minnesota, and I think that's his appeal. I mean, he's just very real, very down to earth, and really funny. And so he's going to be with us, and this is August 6th, and it comes up, it's through the 8th next summer, Mackinac Island. We're announcing it early because the hotel rooms now, you have to get the bookings in. It's a whole new world post-COVID in travel. But we already have, I think, half of the spaces sold. So, John, how do people take advantage of this great opportunity to spend a weekend with Father Michael Schmitz at the Grand Hotel?
Well, they can go to ctscentral.net, and register online for the Grand Getaway with Father Mike and with you, Teresa. Or they can call 800-727-1999, 800-727-1999, and our team can help as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I look forward to it, and it's just the water, it just being up there, and it just settles you down. It just it seems like your blood pressure. The minute you step on the island, your blood pressure goes down, right?
Well, it does. You don't hear the traffic. You don't have, it's very a very distinct place because you don't have the sights and the sounds that you're accustomed to.
Right.
And we often talk about that, Teresa. That's really how people's hearts are moved and opened, is when you disconnect in a real way. And when you're overseas, when you're in Italy or Greece or somewhere, everything is a little foreign, everything is a little different, and that allows our hearts to be more open to the experience that you're meant to have through the Holy Spirit where you are. Same thing, even, right here domestically. You go to an island like Mackinac where there are no cars, you just hear the horses. It's a Victorian setting, and life is very reflective. I mean, many of the traditions at the Grand Hotel, for instance, the dressing for dinner, the multiple courses, those are all indicative of another time. And as now you cited earlier, tells us,
people are longing for that.
There's wisdom in it, yeah. And, particularly coming out of this pandemic, the whole economy shifted to buying things. And, now there's, a surplus of motorhomes and all of these things that were being manufactured. They didn't fill the hole, and yet what people long for is to be together and to have time with each other, and meaningful time, not just that's what we try to combine with these events, particularly this one, is you nourish the body. That's God's given us these gifts, the gift of food, the gift of people, the gift of beauty, but we have to nourish our souls, and that's an important part of this weekend away. So
yeah, that's great. And I was talking earlier, I don't know if you heard it, but talking about the children, who so many of them have grown up with this event because we've been doing this for several years now. And to see these kids out on the dance floor having a great time with this orchestra that plays every night at the Grand Hotel, and how so many people come up to us. Are you with is this a particular youth association? These kids are so well behaved. They're having so much good, clean fun. So you're doing, on top of all of that, you're giving witness to beauty and truth.
You are, and I think that kids in particularly are drawn to this. And when you talk about it in the abstract, hey, do you want to go up to an island in northern Michigan where there are no cars and you can go to an orchestra and dance at night?
Yeah.
And yet you can't pull them out of there. They all want to be there. In fact, it's some of our good friends who've attended this event for many years are being featured in our own highly acclaimed Detroit Catholic, and they talk about the influence that this event has had, has had on their family.
Yep, absolutely. John, thanks so much for doing this and for allowing us to be a part of it. What's the phone number again if people want to get a reservation for next August with Father Michael Schmitz at the Grand Hotel?
800-727-1999.
All right, we'll be right back to wrap up a Tuesday morning edition of Catholic Connection. Don't miss the opportunity. God willing, we hope to see you there on beautiful Mackinac Island. Stay tuned.
CMF Curo is a Catholic healthcare ministry providing families nationwide with a better solution centered around whole health, spirit, mind, and body, Our members share their medical burdens within a faith-filled community. At CMF Curo, our members have access to a spiritual director, concierge services, and other health and spiritual resources. Find out if CMF Curo is a better solution for your family. Visit mycatholichealthcare.com. That's mycatholichealthcare.com.
Steve Ray here with a Holy Land pilgrimage update. Israel's now open again and has removed all vaccine requirements. Our brand new buses and Catholic guide are ready to welcome you. Check out our upcoming pilgrimages to the biblical lands of Israel and Jordan. Pray every mystery of the Rosary where it happened, and walk in the footprints of Mary and Jesus, and let us be your guides.
To learn more about your Ave Maria Radio trip, find the Ave Maria Radio Travel tab at AveMariaRadio.net.
Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Popchak.
I'm Lisa Popchak. It's tough raising faithful Catholic kids in today's world.
How do you raise kids to stay true to their faith?
Find out in a new free webinar Greg and I are hosting called Raising Confident Catholic Kids. And it's happening on Wednesday, October 12th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Sign up today at CatholicHOM.com/webinar. Remember, it's free. Again, that's CatholicHOM.com/webinar.
People ask how they can care for older family members who can't fully care for themselves. One answer is Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care. Visiting Angels assists adults nationwide with 600 locations to continue living at home and not have to move into a nursing home. Their caregivers provide assistance in hygiene, meals, and light housework. Services are provided up to 24 hours per day, and you can select your caregiver before service begins. More information, including franchise opportunities, is on the web at visitingangels.com.
Oh, sorry we didn't get to play the audio version of those videos, but we will share them with you later in the week when we have the producers on with us. Coming up tomorrow, you don't want to miss it, we're going to be talking with Father Charlie Fox about encouraging priests and deacons to preach the truth in love from the pulpit. See you then. Ciao, ciao.
You've been listening to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo. Catholic Connection is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio, and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Our producer is Andrew Kruchek. For copies of this program or for more information, visit AveMariaRadio.net. That's AveMariaRadio.net. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for another edition of Catholic Connection.